Well, happy April to everybody. I hope you guys have a good Holy Week and a good Easter. With Easter coming up, we aren't going to have a quiz this week, and you actually just have a fairly short assignment. I'm going to do a quick video to explain what's up, and then you have just a few problems on a worksheet, which will combine with some stuff next week on the next quiz that you'll have. So what we're going to do to explain things is take a look at a couple of problems that are from that same chapter 0 that you guys have been working on. I'm going to look at the two that you have here, and then we're going to add a couple more problems onto those. So the first couple of problems, they give you two functions. We have f of x equals x to the fifth power, and g of x equals x cubed minus 4x squared plus x minus 8. And then we have two different things that we're supposed to find. Now you did, earlier in the year, exactly what these say, and the important thing about these is they are not talking about multiplication. What this is composition of functions. You're supposed to find f of g of x, and then g of f of x. I'm going to give you guys just a couple minutes to think about that, and then we're going to talk about what do you do to find those answers. So the big thing when you have a composition of functions is you're taking a function of a function. And when I'm trying to find f of g of x, I look at the formula for g of x, I go back to f, and wherever there's an x, I change that to what g of x says. So here I'd have x cubed minus 4x squared plus x minus 8, all of that raised to the fifth power. I just changed the x in the first function to that whole formula from the second one. And on this problem, that's how I would leave things. Theoretically, you could like multiply this by itself and then by itself again and again and again, but there's really no reason to do that. It just makes the problem harder. So yeah, we've got this whole quantity to the fifth power. The other problem is the same thing backwards. We're finding g of f of x, and so I went to the formula for g. Everywhere that it said x, I changed that to x to the fifth power. So we've got x to the fifth cubed minus 4x to the fifth squared plus x to the fifth minus 8. Now this you actually can fairly easily simplify. Remember, when you are taking a power to a power, you multiply exponents, and that's why I have an answer of x to the 15th minus 4x to the 10th plus x to the 5th minus 8. One thing that people will sometimes screw up on this is they try to take the 4 squared in the middle there as well, but it's not part of what you take to the power, so that's why it's minus 4x to the 10th instead of like 16x to the 10th. Here I've got those same two functions, but I have two different problems, and I want you to look at those for a minute and see if you could think about what would you do to solve these two. The first one here is a multiplication problem. It's f times g of x. And so what I've got to do is literally multiply the two functions, x to the fifth times that whole function that was g of x. Here I could distribute this out, and when you do multiply, you add exponents. So my final answer would be x to the 8th minus 4x to the 7th plus x to the 6th minus 8x to the 5th. And after that, we have an addition problem. Now, with addition, the only thing you could do would be to add the first function plus the second function. If there happened to be like terms, I could combine them, but there aren't, and that's why I just leave things like it looks, x to the fifth plus x cubed minus 4x squared plus x minus 8. So the other problem that I showed you in that original one that I had up at the top, it gave you the function f of x equals x squared. And it said calculate f of x plus h minus f of x all over h, and then simplify. Now there's actually a reason why they're asking you to do this. There's some of you guys that'll be going on and taking calculus next year, and this is actually an important formula from calculus. It's what's called the definition of derivative. And it turns out that it's a way that you can figure out the slope of a curve. And again, you'll really worry about that next year, but now they're just getting you familiar with what the notation looks like. The thing that's important about this is when you're trying to find f of x plus h, that means that I go to the formula and wherever it said x, I change the x to x plus h. So that's why I would have x plus h squared, and then minus f of x was just x squared, all over h. Now that's the calculate the formula there. The other part says simplify, and that's going to take me just a minute to do, but it can actually become a much simpler formula than what I have here. So the first thing to realize here is that you're going to have x plus h squared. And anytime you square something, it means you take it times itself. That would be x plus h times x plus h. And so you end up with x plus h times x plus h, all of that minus x squared all over h. What I'm going to do now is FOIL that out, literally multiply it times itself. I'll take x times x times h times x, and h times h. And if you do that, what you're going to end up getting is x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. You have all of that, and then minus x squared all over h. And now what we want to do is cancel some stuff. You notice we have x squared at the beginning and another x squared at the end. Those are exact opposites, so they just disappear. And we're left with 2xh plus h squared all over h. Well, now I have an h in every single term, so I can cancel out an h out of everything. And what my final answer is going to be is 2x plus h. Much simpler than what we started with. I'm going to look at one other problem here quick. This one again, I've got a formula for f and a formula for g. And I want you guys to take a minute and see if you can figure out what would f plus g of x end up being. Again, when you're adding, what you basically do is just combine like terms. So I take 1x squared plus 3x squared, that gives me 4x squared. Negative 4x plus x is negative 3x, and 7 minus 11 is negative 4. So our final answer will be 4x squared minus 3x minus 4. And that is it for this week's notes. Again, you do not have a quiz this week. There is, however, a worksheet that you really should take a look at. Next week, we're going to have that and some other stuff that will end up being on the following quiz. But that's it for this week. I do hope that you have a good Easter, and we will talk to you again a week from now.